ACC non-conference games in jeopardy. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, breaking down the Canes. And the very best way that we know how to do that is, of course, with our Miami Hurricanes live featuring Cam Underwood, State of the U. Cam, it's Saturday morning. How you doing?
I'm good. Just hanging out here at the house. So, we'll see if I get any deliveries or any other activity over here out of the bay window. But no, I mean, I'm good. Just hanging out and ready to, party for an hour. How are you doing, Mark?
It's funny you say that about the deliveries before I answer your question, because I was just on the phone with somebody in particular, somebody significant in my life, and we were talking about guys that like to decorate and guys that don't like to decorate. So if they're on their own, between relationships, whatever, and they were talking about their son who is showing at 20 years old the affinity for decorating. And some guys do and some guys don't. I can think of my brother who, if you throw him by himself into a new home, he's going to go that direction. I'm pretty much plain. I like it to be nice and fixed up, but I rely on the fairer sex for that. So if I'm left to my own devices, it's just plain, because I just don't have that in me.
Yeah, I mean, obviously this blank wall that's been buying me for the longest time, even though I do have art that I could put up there, kind of goes that. But then also, like, I don't plan on living here forever. Like, eventually, just like moving on to a different location. So like, that's the other hesitancy for me, because it's like, why am I going to put all this time into design or whatever? Although, I mean, look, if you follow me on Twitter at Underwood Sports, you know that I love HGTV. You know that I'm all about the, Love It or Listed, like all those things, House Hunters. I'm big into that. I've watched, a couple of those Netflix shows about interior design and whatnot and things like that. I mean, it is something that I enjoy. And obviously in my personal life, I like color, like a lot of color. But it's just like, do I want to do that now if I'm going to move in 2 years, kind of thing. So, yeah.
Similar to last week, folks. We've got some topics. Sure, we've got a very weighty issue with the ACC possibly not playing non-conference games, but keep in mind, you should be able to get in your comments, your questions, your debate topics, whatever you would like to serve to Cam and possibly myself. But right off the top, very shortly, in about 45 minutes, Cam Kinchens, who Cam profiled. This Cam profiled the other Cam last week. Well, Cam and you Canes fans hope that he's not going to be doing any moving anytime soon, necessarily to another state, because it's between Auburn and Miami for this safety commit.
Yeah, I mean, he's a 4-star player from Miami Northwestern. He's another second-team All-American by Max Preps last year, first-team All-Dade, first-team All-State. 76 tackles, 9 interceptions, 4 tackles for loss. Last year, I think he had 74, 7 tackles for loss and 3 interceptions as a sophomore in 2018. So, I mean, he's a guy who has 150 tackles and 13 interceptions, I want to say, over the course of the last 2 years. 5'11", 200 pounds. So he's well built. Like 200 pounds of muscle is like sizable. I mean, think about Amari Carter coming out of high school, like that kind of size where, I mean, yeah, if you're taller, if you're Greg Russo and 6'6", 205, you look like a string bean, but like 5'11", 6 feet, 205 is like chiseled. So Cam Kinchens is a very good player. Obviously, I gave you some of his credentials already, some of the statistics. So he's a guy who's done it in pads and also, shorts and T-shirts. He's on the Miami Immortals team. And if you've seen some of those videos from the 7-on-7 circuit, they have the Miami Vice color jerseys, the all black with the neon pink and blue. But just, interceptions, pass deflections all over the field in 7-on-7. So that's someone who translates, whether it's a camp circuit, it's a testing 7-on-7 or during games. The athleticism and the potential translates into performance for Cam Kinchens. So, yeah, we're down to the last 2. Pretty much everybody is, knows that it's down to Miami and Auburn. Reading all of the things and talking to the people that I talk to, pretty much it could go either way. And that's what everybody's written, 247 on both sides, the Auburn side, the Miami side, just other people that, are around the world of recruiting. That's pretty much what it is. Don't think that Kinchens has told either program that he's coming. So it seems like they're going to find out when we find out, whenever that happens around the noon hour. which, you know, is a little disconcerting. But I mean, it went our way with Romello Brinson. who's also from Miami Northwestern. And if Kinchens does commit to Miami, he would be the 5th player from Northwestern this year to commit to the Hurricanes, joining Brinson, tight end Khalil Brantley, cornerback Tim Burns Jr., and outside linebacker Ja'Cory Hammett. So that'd be 5 players from Miami Northwestern in the same class coming to the Miami Hurricanes, which, is what people are saying. Okay, cool. We're going to go 5 for 5 at Northwestern and then go 5 for 5 at Palmetto. I don't know about that at Palmetto. But again, if you take pretty much any 2 of the 5 from Palmetto, I'm good with that. So, anything over 2 is a bonus, for me from Palmetto. But it would be 5 for 5 from Northwestern this year. That'd be another win for Ephraim Vonda, head up against the SEC team, the safeties coach, beating Auburn for Kinchens. Also involved in that recruitment is Stephen Field, the tight end coach, who played at Miami Northwestern in high school and then also coached Miami Northwestern a couple of years ago as their head football coach. So he's obviously from the area, involved in that recruitment and everything. So that would be big. But I mean, if Miami loses on Kinchens, this would not be the first time that we've lost to Auburn recently. Think of what's his name, Corey Wooten, in the last recruiting class, the defensive end from Georgia, who was committed to Miami all the way through, and then he signed there. Think about Mark Anthony Richards, Amon Richards' little brother, also signed there instead. If you think about the Irvin kid a couple of years ago, Tim Irvin, from Westminster Christian. He also picked Auburn over Miami. If you think about Demetrius Davis from Booker T. Washington, was a cornerback. He did the same thing. There's been many a time recently where Miami's gone head up against Auburn and lost. So that should give you significant pause until we hear exactly from Kinchens where he's going to go. So it could be, 5 for 5 this year or Northwestern, or it could be the 5th or 6th in a row that Miami's gone head to head against Auburn for and lost. So we're going to see what happens, and hopefully he stays home and picks the good guys, but we'll see.
Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, breaking down Miami, courtesy Cam Underwood. State of the U, that's the site to lock in on during these times of uncertainty regarding scheduling and regarding recruiting. So Cam Kinchens, we are about 45 minutes away from knowing where he is going to land. And I guess we're going to have to add Auburn to the list of teams that Cam typically runs down in regards to who the Canes have to challenge for talent in South Florida based on that roll call.
Kind of. It's like, it's weird. It's few and far between. But those times that they're there, it's been very impactful for them. You know what I mean? It's like, it's not the Alabama who's, okay, any top-rated player, you already know. It's not going to be Georgia. Pretty much any top-rated player, any running back, of course, you already know. It's just like, one this year, maybe not the next year, maybe 2 the year after that. It's like, it's very sporadic, but like I said, impactful when it's Miami, or has been at least recently, when it's Auburn versus Miami on the recruiting trail.
Remind everyone that the Super Chat is wide open. Please show your appreciation if you are led that way for what we do here with Cam each and every week. Also, the live chat is wide open for your comments and questions, and they're flooding in, but they're mostly concerning scheduling. I believe Cam and I will cover that A to Z in regards to possibilities, and we'll get into that in just a second. So leave other comments there. As well, we appreciate all the highs and hellos and how you doings from everyone. Don't want to read all those off, and also appreciate in particular what I'm seeing. Birmingham Kane just basically again reminding everyone to hit that like button. All right, so it was, I believe, on Thursday, because I immediately went live to take your calls and questions concerning the Big Ten's decision to cancel all non-conference games. That, of course, affects Miami and its trip to Michigan State. There were a handful of other ACC Big Ten games. More weighty than that is obviously just that you have one of the 5 major conferences, one of the 2 highest in revenue and popularity, making a decision of that weight, and just the expectation that that's just the first of the domino effect. And the ACC coming out a little bit later to say that's on the table. That's one of our considerations. And within about the next week, we're going to make our decision known in regards to non-conference games. The Pac-12 made the same decision later in the day to cancel non-conference games, affecting the nation even more. So here we are, about 8 weeks to week 1, something in that range, and we already have games canceled. very prominent games in the ACC involving, again, Miami, Michigan State in particular right now. And Cam, I know that there's been a number of models that have been thrown out, some credible, some that have an actual source, and others just fan talk about what's possible in regards to a schedule. Let's start there.
Yeah, I mean, it seems inevitable that all the conferences are going to go conference only. Like you said, there's been Big Ten and then Pac-12 were the first two. And we'll see about ACC, SEC, and Big 12. But I think that that's coming. And I started going down the path that many people do because it's the first layer that you think of is distance, proximity kind of a thing. And I started doing a little bit of math, like, wait, obviously, like, if you've never been to South Florida is south. And I mean, like, south. Like, you hit the Florida-Georgia state line or coming from South Carolina. And to get to South Florida where I live, it's south, bro. Like, it's hours and hours and hours. So, you think about going to another location and you think about that distance. But, in doing a little bit more research, doing a little bit more reading and, further consideration, if everybody's going conference only, then there has to be another consideration past distance because most of the conferences do span large swaths of the country. And the thing is really organized or what is it? Formulaic. But consistent testing. You know what I mean? That you can say, okay, we're going to implement the across the board testing in our way at our time in our conference because the conference can then mandate and dictate that happens with all the teams. You can control that. So that's number one. And then number two, you can, if you're the conference, have the control to say, okay, we're going to now swap these teams or these games or whatever, because you're the governing body for all of those entities. But again, just using the example, obviously, because I went to Miami and I was going to go home to Michigan to go see Miami, Michigan State, September 26th, which is not going to happen now. So I had to cancel that trip. But if you are the Big Ten cannot mandate any testing or anything from Miami. And likewise, the ACC cannot mandate anything from Michigan State. They can ask, they can request, but it cannot be mandated. If you're doing conference only, you can then say, yes, Mark, the president of the member school or the athletic director, you're going to do this because I'm the commissioner of this league and I can dictate that to you. And that's the main thing more than the distance for the consideration of going conference only. And it took me a little bit, honestly. Like I said, I, like everybody else, thought initially, hey, it has to be the distance thing. But upon any kind of scrutiny, you see that distance is not actually the determining factor. So there's that, just kind of the general conversation off the top. The two kind of things that I saw, and they were both actually reported, sourced, conversations, were two. So there was one from Joe Giglio, who's a radio host in the North Carolina area, around NC State, I want to say. And one that he had heard from a source was that the ACC was potentially considering a 5-team home and home schedule. So you would have, whatever the teams were. If you're Miami, you have Florida State, Clemson, Louisville, Wake Forest, North Carolina. I just threw 5 names out there. But you play home and away, those 5 teams, and that's your 10 games. And then all of the teams would then have, their 5, and they would do that. So there's that consideration, or one thing that was from a source potentially being spoken about at the ACC level in terms of scheduling for this year. So then you would still have 10 games, but you would see, the same team twice, 5 times. The other one is it was reported or sourced from a different reporter. I forget the name at this time. I do apologize because I would love to give you it if I remember it. Said that, if the ACC just went to a straight 8-game schedule where you played 8 teams, boom, done. Like a normal yearly schedule, because we all know, the ACC Coastal 4-4, round robin thing. And you kind of just, pull a rabbit out of a hat and you pick who's the champion or whatever. So you could do the same 8-game schedule, or it might not be the exact same 8 teams that were on the schedule right now, but you would have that. The other thing that Jersey Cane is mentioning is that Notre Dame counts as an ACC team in terms of this because they had like 4 or 5 ACC teams on their schedule for this year, even though Notre Dame was independent. I dislike Notre Dame. I openly disdain Notre Dame. I cannot stand them. They had 6
games. I counted them up. They went from 5 to 6 this year.
Oh, okay.
6
well,
games.
Yeah. So, I mean,
the ACC pretty much dictate, and I'll go on a rant here in a second about what they could do with Notre Dame.
Oh, absolutely. But no, and that's what I was getting to. But Notre Dame, for number one, they count in terms of the ACC teams. So if you wanted to have the 8-game schedule or that 5 team home and home, they would count, on that consideration. For me, like, it's time that, you make a choice. I was going to use a vulgar turn of phrase there, but I decided not to. It's time that Notre Dame choose. And I tweeted it from the State of the U account. I said, first of all, boo if you're counting Notre Dame as an ACC team for this. And 2, or I think A and B, or 1 and 2, whatever I said. But the second point of conversation is they got to get into a conference. I'm not going to allow them just to dictate everything just because of their history and standing as the University of Notre Dame. I don't care. I don't give a damn about Notre Dame. But no, I'm not here for it. So if they want to be part of, because they should have no games. If we're playing conference only and they're not in a conference, boom, 0 games. That's how it works. BYU, same thing. Independent, no conference. We're going conference games only. Sorry, tough cookies. But now you can't have, this is where the phrase have your cake and eat it too. Because you want to have the cake, you want it to be there, you want to look at it in all of its wonderful glory at your wedding or whatever birthday party, but you also want to eat and consume that sugary goodness. But you cannot have your cake, have it sitting there, and eat it too. Notre Dame, I'm talking to you. Absolutely not. So for me, I don't want to hear about it. Period. The end. So until they say we are coming in as a full member, and they already are in for basketball, they're already in for baseball, they're already in for several other Olympic sports, excuse me. Obviously not hockey, because Miami, the ACC is not a big hockey league. So that would make sense. If we don't offer that, then you find a place where you can do that. It's like if you're a homeschool student, you can go to the local high school and be in their football team, band, choir, or whatever that they don't have at homeschool, which is what Tim Tebow did, in case you were wondering about a little bit of history. There you go. Well, for me, Notre Dame, you got to choose. Are you independent? Or are you in the ACC? Because you cannot have it both ways. Because if you're independent in terms of football, you in that Golden Dome and that terrible stadium and whatever campus, you're going to sit there dormant and quiet, just like the the Ivy Leagues that are not going to play at all this year. Or you're going to be with the ACC, and I mean all the way with the ACC. We're not going to be in an entanglement. Shout out to Will and Jada. Anything just on the side. You're all the way in or you're all the way out, period.
So to tackle the opening of your dissertation, I love it, Cam.
No, go.
We could have tag teamed on that because at the opening of your dissertation, I will start with the travel portion of this because I think it's reasonable to have that first initial thought. I did as well. So I'm here recording. I get a couple notices from some people about the Big Ten canceling games. So I just immediately, boom, live stream. I got 100 people on here throwing me calls and throwing me live chat conversation. And I said right out of the gate, I'm just learning of this, just put my head around it, and I will be vetting it as I talk of why the reasons. And the first one was proximity, because you think of college football being a regional game and the conferences are geographic, and that's with the way they started and still are to a degree. But then you think about, okay, the ACC stretches from Miami to Boston. That is
every point in between,
basically. And then out to Louisville from a Western standpoint. The Big Ten from upper Minnesota all the way to the East Coast and Rutgers. These are massive conferences geographically now. They are expansive. Therefore, I'm thinking Iowa loses its game with Iowa State. That's got to be the closest game that they play on their schedule. That's closer than every other Big Ten team. Ohio State's first game is against Bowling Green. They're like 90 minutes up the road. And then if you look at really how just about everybody across the country schedules outside of a big non-conference matchup like a Miami-Michigan State, generally teams, especially, well, I'm not going to point particular teams out, but they generally stay in their region in regards to non-conference scheduling, especially those FCS and those group of fives that they're trying to help out. So you could go across the board in regards to scheduling. Look at your Carolina schools and the teams that they pick up in terms of non-conference play, and it's typically close proximity. So the conference games are generally further away than 80% of the non-conference games. But as Cam just pointed out, and I won't elaborate too much because he made his point and made it very well, the conference can control the situation. They can dictate travel, testing, housing, all of it.
Reporting of testing.
They were going to do things.
I'm sorry to talk over you, but reporting of testing, obviously living in the state of Florida with the governance that we have, there's been inconsistent reporting, we'll call it. You can debate the foundations of that as you want, but it's definitely not been uniform. It's not been, it's not been consistent. We'll call it like that. But if you're the ACC or any conference, you can say, no, it's like with the conference injury report, which is like when the ACC went away from that. But when they had that, it was every Thursday by 11 o'clock in the morning, boom, this is what it is. And if you play on a Thursday, it would be Wednesday, boom. That's when you had to report the injuries, the injury report, doubtful, questionable, out, all that kind of stuff. But you can do the same thing with your coronavirus stuff. Full disclosure, I had to get tested for coronavirus because of something at the secret day job. I am negative and got that report, but you would have to do that for all of the players, and then you would have to report that at such a time. So it couldn't be that, okay, Miami's getting on a plane to go to play whichever team in whichever model, but then it's just like 5 minutes before you board the plane, oh, hey, wait, Mark Rogers State had 8 players who tested positive. Cool, we're gonna send that then. You know what I mean? Just like, no, it would have to be a certain time so that you could react accordingly. And that's a big part of the governance that is able to be done at the conference level that would not be enforceable per se if you're going cross conferences, because obviously you only govern those who are in your conference.
Now, I would think if these conferences and these commissioners are smart, they would get together, not that they have any accountability to each other, but their strength in numbers and thought process to get together at some points, share best practices and ideas.
Right.
That could possibly be done at some point. Orange and green blood. Cam, do you think the NCAA will treat positive COVID tests as an injury, keep the young men quarantined for 2 weeks?
Well, I mean, first of all, yes. Like I said, I did some extensive research on COVID-19 this week just because, of my personal situation with the secret day job and needing to get tested. So you can extrapolate that at your leisure. I'm not going to detail that for you. However, you do need to be asymptomatic before you can return for a specific amount of time. So it's not just, if it's 2 weeks, right? But you still have the majority of or one strong symptom for 10 of those days, then you're really only isolating for 4 days because you've still had the contagious or the outward manifestation of that for 10 of those 14 days. So then, and again, this is all things that I had to look at because of my personal situation. So then is it like, okay, so now are we going 14 days from when you're asymptomatic? Are we going 72 hours from when you're asymptomatic? Are we doing another test? Are we doing 2 tests 24 hours apart to prove that, whatever? Because those are things that I've heard across many different industries and many different individuals. So if you get tested twice, 24 hours apart, and those are both negative, then that's proof positive enough, regardless of it's been 14 days. Like there's a lot of moving parts and pieces here. And especially in a team sport. You know what I mean? Like, everybody talks about locker room talk and everything, but like, you're in that locker room. It's so easy for something to pass like that. You know what I mean? Like, you're just there hanging out. Okay, cool. We're not going to have the masks on in the locker room, or even if we are, but like, it's real quick. Cool. My mask slipped off a little bit while I was putting on my undershirt before my flak jacket or whatever. Like, there's so many little ways that could be propagated. And all of those are things that do need to be considered. So I think that you have to treat a positive test as an injury of some sort. I do not know what the entire protocol would be for the NCAA. We've seen some of these things in other leagues. We've seen in the NBA, we've seen MLS. They sent an entire team home from the bubble because they went out to a bar. They tried to sneak out, and they said, no, go home. Everybody, bye. So I don't know if it would be that. But obviously it would be on an individual basis or individual positive test basis or things like that. But I would say that every conference, and this is probably what they're working on now, every conference would have to have their set standard protocols and what a positive means and how they're going to deal with that and all of those different kind of things. Like, again, there's a lot of moving parts and a lot of moving pieces, but if you're going to try to get back to playing football or have athletics in September, which, full disclosure, I don't think is going to happen. But if you're going that way, these are considerations that have to be made, and you have to have a comprehensive plan for any and all eventualities.
New King God, thank you so much for the super chat contribution. As soon as I scroll down to that point in the live chat, I will post that to the screen. And if you had a question included, so thank you so much. And a reminder to everyone to please take a second, like the video, and also the super chat is available. Q-Ray Walker asking Cam and Mark, most of the Power 5 conferences are more than 12 teams. Therefore, why don't you expand past the 8 or 9 games of the conferences? My answer to that would be, let's face it, there are 2 huge factors that are on opposite ends of the decision of any of these decisions. For all of us that are watching, the reason we're sitting here talking for an hour each week, the reason we watch all the games is because all of us love to watch football. That's what it comes down to for us. The people that make the decisions, it comes down to money. So you've got 2 major factors. You've got health versus money. And where are you going to strike that balance? Because if you went the complete route of health, how do you almost ensure everyone's health? You cancel the season and everybody sits home until we have a vaccine and we move on for 2021. If you're going to completely side in that direction, if you're not, you're completely oblivious and uncaring of anybody's health, then we just play football the way we would normally do it. Obviously, there is a balance and a tug of war between the two, the wanting to play football and make money versus the health considerations. And the moves that are being made are with both of those in mind to try to have some semblance of a season, but keep people healthy. Therefore, the more you expand out to play more games, the more you risk possibilities of playing different teams in different settings, even though it's within the conference. Therefore, they're trying to come up with some semblance of a season that confines the number of teams that are participating against each other.
Yeah, I mean, it's just less data points, honestly. Like Mark's talking about. But yeah, it's really it's the logistics of everything, and logistics and health and safety and money, so we'll see. But yeah, that's why I think that on the 8 or 10 games, that seems to be more what it is, because that also then shortens the time of the season, as opposed to going 17 weeks or 6 or however long, then you're talking about 12 weeks. And that could be a factor as well.
Cam, do we know, as a Florida Gators fan here and San Francisco 49ers fan, is suggesting that Rhett Lashley is a potential candidate as a head coach regards to his aspirations in the future?
No, he's just saying that if you had Rhett Lashley in charge of everything and Manny Diaz in charge of the defense, then that would be better than the reverse. I don't necessarily see where you have a foundation for that, to be perfectly honest. But I think that if Rhett Lashley, the offense is able to do what he's done pretty much everywhere, which is just be fast and dynamic, then that will highlight the defense, which again, it's not like Manny Diaz doesn't look at the defense ever, just because he's head coach. Yes, he has to do kind of big picture stuff, but like he showed last year, he will get down there in the mud, get back in the trenches and help coaching if need be. But yeah, I don't necessarily know that there's that. That's a good maybe fantasy sports question kind of a thing, but I'd be interested to see what would happen with Manny Diaz as head coach and Rhett Lashley as offensive coordinator this year personally.
Oh, and I so much wanted to add to Cam's rant about Notre Dame. So I've already posted one. This fueled me to the point of working all day, working all night, coming home at 5 or 5:30 in the morning and still wanting to rant about Notre Dame for 10 minutes. So I recorded and posted, and it's done pretty well. And basically that the ACC can make a power play right now. Here is the opportunity of opportunities.
Yeah.
It already rubs me the wrong way, and I don't root for a team that is a member of the ACC. So I can imagine as an ACC member, the thought process that we don't, and when I say we, of course, taking ownership of the conference to a certain extent as a fan, saying that our conference doesn't have the amount of self-respect to say you are either a member of our conference or you're not a member of our conference. I hate to make the comparison to the SEC, but I just cannot imagine that the SEC would ever cut a deal with a particular program to say, you can join in these sports, but not in these sports. Yes, as Cam pointed out, there are situations because of regional sports. And the Big Ten in hockey would be one. Some schools don't play hockey. And so the Big Ten conference is very small in regards to hockey. So they've got to play in other leagues, the schools that do play hockey. But getting down to the decision that was made was we can benefit from Notre Dame playing our teams and packing stadiums and tacking on ratings points on television, but they won't join us. We would like them to join us, but they won't, but we still want to gain the benefit. So is there mutual benefit there? Am I blaming Notre Dame? No, they can do whatever they want and get away with it if they have a partner to do so, and they have at this point. But now we've come to a situation where the Notre Dame schedule has fallen apart because one opponent's out of the way since the Big Ten's made a decision. Now Stanford and USC follow suit because they are no longer on the board for Notre Dame. Mm-hmm. Now the ACC may be making the same decision, and Notre Dame is technically not a member that competes for championships in the ACC. They are not a football-playing member of the ACC. Therefore, the ACC and John Swofford, even if he wants to be selfish and just think about his own legacy, he could be a legend in ACC history if he would take a stand and say, you know what, Notre Dame, we do have an agreement with you, and therefore you can choose to not play football in 2020 because you're not a member of our conference, and we have chosen to only play conference games, and we'll pick up your contract in 2021 and continue. But we have a good deal for you. We can save your football season and the tens of millions of dollars that you're going to lose by not fulfilling your TV contracts by allowing you to join our conference. You can join our conference starting right now in 2020, become a football playing member of our conference. We're going to save your 2020 season, and you're going to be a member of the ACC going forward. That would be the power play I would make, and I believe John Swofford should make as ACC commissioner, who's leaving here in a year. He could make the power play and cement his status as a benefit to the ACC for decades to come, because like them or hate them, the addition of Notre Dame to the ACC would be enormous.
Exactly. All of that. And I mean, look, the time horizon for John Swofford is short in terms of his job. So I don't want to, people to misconstrue what I'm saying. But yeah, he's not going to be here as the ACC commissioner. So put all of your chips in, bro. Like, you're holding that move for a rainy day. Ain't no more rainy days, bro. You're already on your way out. This is the time to use all of that cachet that you have. Like, go confidently in that direction, man. Like, that's what I mean, Mark and I are of one mind on this topic. Like, this is the time to make that push. Look, and you've seen other people say that. Taj Boyd even quoted that, quoted a tweet that I retweeted about the conference only schedule. And he said, okay, push for Notre Dame to join the ACC or don't let them play. Like Taj Boyd, verified, Taj Boyd, other like players have said the same thing. Like we're not alone in this thought. There are other high ranking like people in the world of sport who have this idea. John Swofford, this is the time.
There has been no tangible benefit to this pandemic. Maybe some intangibles out there in terms of people evaluating life and loved ones and so forth and so on, but no tangible benefits to this thing. This could be the first one for the ACC to say, man, this situation fell into my lap. It's been horrible in every other way, but we could take advantage, and this could benefit the conference for decades to come. Again, whether you love or hate Notre Dame, to add them to a conference as a football playing member is enormous. I know they're not what they used to be. I know that the brand isn't even what it used to be. But
yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Top 5 to 10 brands in college football.
I might hate them, but the brand is still strong. They're still a national program. And to Navy Thomas 8's point, Notre Dame is located in the Midwest. It does not fit in the Atlantic coast. Neither does Louisville. You know what I mean? Like they're in the Midwest as well. They're not too far away. But then you talk, you heard that entanglement drop. Yeah. But regardless. So then if you're talking about they don't fit with the ACC, then extrapolate that out to all of the other sports in which Notre Dame is ACC member. Baseball, basketball, men's and women. Wait, basketball, men's, women's is in the Big East still. I think. But I mean, there's more, you know what I mean? Like, it's not just like we're saying, okay, cool. We're just, we feel like trying to get a cash cow. So we're going to pull in Notre Dame football. You know what I mean? It's not just out the middle of nowhere. There is this connection. Because again, like Mark is talking about, they usually play 5. This year, they're going to play 6 ACC teams on their schedule of their 12 previously scheduled 12-game season. So literally half. All right. And they're members of this conference in other sports. Not just going out on a limb here, bro.
6 games. They're 2 games short of a conference schedule.
Yes. That's what I'm saying. Like, I mean, at 5 games, they're 1 game. If they were to normally play what they did, which is normally 5 ACC teams a year, that's 1 game short of a conference or a division schedule. Like with no crossovers, but division only on a yearly basis. Like, come on, man. Come on.
And for somebody who rails on a regular basis against the college football playoff, and aside from 2019, the many controversies that it brings each and every year in regards to, okay, Oklahoma's 12-1, Ohio State's 12-1. Look at the resumes. We go through that every year with some kind of comparison between 2 and 3 teams. We were in a situation 2 years ago where we could have been spared a 30-3 Clemson blowout of Notre Dame in the college football playoff, because that could have been the ACC championship game.
I mean, depending on divisions.
So, all right, Miami fans, college football fans, and we appreciate the other fan bases that are often represented here. Florida State, Florida, Ohio State, Michigan. I've seen all sorts of people, North Carolina in the mix as well. Jump on in with your comments and questions.
Yeah, I saw the North Carolina guy put up about Tony Grimes, the #1 cornerback in 2021, reclassifying to 2020. So he's supposed to be enrolling at Carolina on August 1st. Which is massive. Don't get me wrong. That happens a lot in the world of basketball, where you see guys who reclassify. Miami has also seen it years ago when Mark Walton, the running back, reclassified up a year. And that was into his original graduating class. But still, he played his junior year at Booker T. Washington, finished all his academics, boom, showed up in Miami. So this is a thing that has happened in the world of football. It's few and far between, and it is even rarer that someone of the caliber of a Tony Grimes, who's 5-star, top 15 player in the class. Even, I mean, as good as Mark Walton was, I think Tony Grimes is a different caliber of prospect, which is interesting, and we'll see. that could be a big benefit for Carolina if they play, or if games are played this year. But we'll see. But that is definitely an interesting storyline. I'm not sure. I've seen people who have surmised that lots of players are going to do that. We're going to reclassify up. You have to finish your academics first. I was a teacher for 15 years. I taught at the high school level. I taught, athletes. I've worked with the athletic departments. I've seen these things firsthand. You cannot just do them. I will tell you, I don't know if I use his name in this. I don't think I did. I'll just leave it anonymous. Oh, the mail guy's here. What's up? There was a player at a school one time who was supposed to graduate early to go to his chosen university. And that player did not complete the second semester of English 4 online during their first semester, during the fall semester, because you got to do, that's the other work you have to do online to graduate early. And thought that, just the university and maybe the coaches at the school would hook it up and everything. And everybody's like, no, you have to do that. And that did not get done. And so that player had to stay for his spring semester as a high school senior and not enroll because the academic work was not completed. So I say that to say, if you're not going to, if Tony Grimes is in a place where in the next 20 days, he'll have all of his senior year academics done, good for you, bro. Awesome. You've been working ahead. You're in that position. Everybody's not in that spot. Everybody doesn't have the technological capabilities. Everybody simply just doesn't have the mental acuity to do that. And that's something Bud Elliott has talked about, former colleague of mine at SB Nation, now over at 247 Sports, about, look, some of these guys, their main thing is sport, and it is almost unfair to require them to be a certain caliber student to be able to do this physical thing that they could otherwise earn money. If you're a day laborer per se, if you're a brick mason, if you're doing siding, if you're doing windows here in Florida, sure, you got to get certified to do those things, but you don't have to get certain grades in school. You can just train to do that. So it's a similar thing with football where, but we're requiring them to do their academics as the entry level. And everybody just simply is not ready for that. They're just not. It takes a certain individual. You got to start that a couple years early. Look, I've seen it. I had a student who was one of the smartest students I've ever had. And she graduated high school and had barely turned 16. And I remember, my choir kids would have lunch in my office and everything. And they would be joking around and bro, why does she act like that? I'm like, cause she's 14, bro. She's a high school sophomore, junior. Yeah. She turned 14 the spring of her junior year. You know what I mean? So if we're in there eating lunch and she's reacting to the joke as a middle schooler, it's cause she is she's that age, but she had that mental acuity where her academics, boom, she's incredibly smart, ridiculously smart. So she could do that kind of thing where she could graduate early and did graduate early when she barely turned 16. All these athletes do not have that mental ability. And I'm sorry, that's just a fact of the fact. So I get where people are saying, oh, since they're sitting at home and they have nothing else to do, everybody's going to graduate early. I, as a trained education professional with over 15 years of experience, tell you that's not going to happen.
That is totally my bad. I was like, Cam froze up on us. No, I froze up too. My internet disconnected for a few seconds. So the 14-year-old brilliant student acting a certain way, immature, and you were explaining why, and that's when you froze.
Oh, okay.
I froze.
But yeah, basically, and I don't know if I went off or not, but basically, she had the mental ability to do the academic work, and therefore she graduated early. All these football players don't have the academic ability. That's just a point of the fact. So while there are some, and people are saying, oh, they're going to sit home now and they have nothing to do during quarantine, they're going to work ahead. It's not just working ahead. You actually have to, get scheduled for these things. You have to enroll in these online programs and systems. You have to do the work. I know people say, oh, well, they're going to have somebody do it for them. Fine, cool. It has to get done for you, but it has to get done. You know what I mean? So while Tony Grimes, I think, he was in a position where he was probably looking to early enroll after the December term as a senior and then get there in January. So then all he really had to do is just accelerate that last semester of academic work. You can do that. If you're already planning to get out of high school a little early, you can do it maybe a little earlier. Everybody does not have that ability or intellect to be able to do that, or work ethic, or anything, whatever you want to call it. I don't think that everybody's in that same situation as Tony Grimes, but it is interesting to see someone who has done that of the caliber of Tony Grimes, and we'll see if maybe now people start pushing for some of these other things.
Several comments in the live chat concerning Notre Dame joining the Big Ten. And if you look at the geography, that makes total sense. And actually, if you go to the history, it makes total sense, but it's not going to happen. So I've made that claim, posted many videos to say Notre Dame needs to join the Big Ten, because there was a time in which Notre Dame played Michigan, Michigan State, and Purdue every year. And of course, they're located right in the middle of Indiana, Big Ten country. And because of the traditions and just the old school feel of the whole deal, it makes total sense from a football standpoint. But they've torn up their contracts with Michigan, Michigan State, and Purdue, and only play them on a periodic basis. Right. They joined in contract with the ACC and all these other sports. And I may be wrong, but I believe I've seen in several sources that there's a stipulation between the ACC and Notre Dame that if Notre Dame does choose to join a conference, it has to be the ACC.
Oh, so we have right of first refusal, basically.
During all this conversation.
That would be very interesting to see if we do have that provision of right of first refusal for Notre Dame picking a conference. That would be... But look, man, that goes back to supporting our point about John Swofford. If you already have the right of first refusal clause, you know what I mean? So bro, like this, you already have other like bullets in the gun. You have other evidence, other, support for you, bro. Like, hey. But, you can lead a horse to water but not make him drink. So even if the situation is there, Swofford has to decide to do it. And I know he, took his sweet time and, played us for being the Southern gentleman who didn't know what was going on about the TV contract or TV station or anything for about 5 years, ACC Media Days. Well, I don't know. We'll see. We're just come on, bro. We all knew better. It was just come on out and say it. You might as well. Everybody's seen the things that had the agreements leaked between ESPN and ACC, because it's public domain. Like, come on, like stop selling me a bill of goods, and like, I get that, the draw from North Carolina and everything, it works for a certain time, but John Swofford, come on, make moves.
The worst they can say is no. And then you just continue the conference. And you continue to play. And if you're me, you say, you know what? We're not playing in 2020 because we made our decision to play conference games. We'll see you in 2021. We'll continue the contract from there. And we'll add the year or whatever, extend a year.
And then you still have the right of first refusal in the contract. So even if they say no now, it's not like they're going to go up and join the Big 10 or Big 12 or whoever else.
That's my understanding. I read that.
I mean, let's assume
credible sources.
Let's assume that exists. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
And even if he's completely doing it for selfish reasons, he could be a hero. He could save his legacy. That's what he could be known for. I'm the guy that brought Notre Dame into the ACC to play football, and our football conference is this much better because of it. We make more money. We're better on the field.
Save or extend his legacy, because I know that people, he has done some good for the conference, and I know that a lot of people hold him in high esteem, but this could be the feather in the cap, as it were.
And commissioners tend to take a beating if their conference doesn't compete well on the field, which the ACC has not for the past couple of years, and really he doesn't have a whole lot of control over that.
Well, by and large, but then, we cannot also ignore the beast that is the Clemson Tigers over in Clemson, South Carolina, because and we're going to talk about the SEC as being amazing for all those years when it was Alabama and everybody else in that conference. Because go back and look at the numbers. It was Alabama.
There were still really good.
It was Alabama and everybody else.
Yes, Alabama was winning the conference, but if you go year to year, they weren't winning it all the time. And there was still LSU, Auburn, Florida. And I know Florida had a couple pitfalls. Georgia.
Which proves my point.
that were still
Which proves
programs.
my point.
But they still had top 10 to 15 programs. The ACC does not have a program that you can say right now is going to field a football team that's going to be ranked in the top 25 or 30 for sure. Now, Miami's got the talent. Florida State, to a lesser degree, has the talent. North Carolina has the talent. But the last couple of years, they haven't fielded a team that's been that Penn State, Michigan tier to Ohio State's tier, and Wisconsin and Iowa, and even other teams. And, Texas and TCU to Oklahoma's tier, and on in every other conference. They haven't had that tier's missing right now.
My point is, a lot of those ills in the SEC were overlooked because of Alabama being awesome for a long time. And that's okay, because we can talk about all those losing seasons that other teams have had. We can. So, I mean, there's been, even with a lot of this going on, Clemson is still the juggernaut. And sure, it hasn't been as widespread success, maybe we'll call it. But when you have one of the two best programs in football for the last however long, that counts too.
Alabama won its first national championship during this run in 2009.
Mm-hmm.
Then Auburn won a national championship in 2010.
Fact.
Then LSU went to a national championship game in 2011.
Okay.
Then Auburn went to a national championship game in 2013.
Look, I'm not saying that they're not better. The SEC has been better, but like a lot of those things again were overlooked because of Alabama. Because I mean, like because you can talk about a lot of the losing as well. I mean, Florida had 10 wins last year. They also went 4-8 twice. Nobody talks about that. Why? Because of Alabama, basically. The Alabama is the colloquialism, but okay, there's been a couple of other teams that have had good seasons as well, but it's not just them.
There's just that chasm after Clemson.
Oh,
it's just enormous.
True. 93-3 in 2 games against my. Oh yeah. I mean, 58-0. Like, oh yeah. Now that I won't controvert because I mean, yeah, that's incontrovertible.
Where we can't even really decide who the second best team in the division. We know in the conference, we know who's the second most talented. We don't know. Virginia made the championship game last year. They lost a bowl game. They lost 5 games. So they were kind of technically the second best team.
Yeah.
But they got ripped by 40 points in the championship game and finished with 5 losses. Pitt went to the conference championship game the year before and lost 7 games. Like there's not a Wisconsin, Penn State, Michigan. There's not a Auburn, Florida, Georgia, LSU. That's all I'm saying.
I mean, Florida went 4-8 twice in the last 6 years, but I mean, okay.
Yeah, but somebody else picked up the slack. There was Auburn, there was Texas A&M, there was LSU, there was Georgia.
Fair.
Even Kentucky finished in the top 10 2 years ago.
You almost stumbled there. I was about to get you.
You're going to get me on Tennessee. Yeah, we're still waiting for Tennessee to turn it around. It's been a long time now.
It has.
I have no idea. Yes, I do have an idea why this question came to mind, and this is completely off the radar, but you mentioned the name Mark Walton. So my thought process was, for some reason, this just clicked that I thought, I'm going to ask Cam. I'm guessing that, unless I'm missing somebody, that Willis McGahee would be the last legendary running back at Miami, like all-time great, both at the program and nationally.
Oh, I mean, and nationally, that's okay.
So who now that you've got a 5-star in Cam Harris, you had a 5-star leave in Lorenzo Lingard. Mm-hmm. Who is the best running back that has played for Miami since those national championship caliber teams?
Duke Johnson, 100%, hands down.
Oh, I forgot about Duke Johnson.
Yeah.
I forgot about Duke Johnson.
I mean, you got Mike James, who's been in the league for a while. You know, you got a couple other guys. Greg Cooper, who was having a really good college career, but unfortunately blew his knee out on the old turf at the Orlando Citrus Bowl Stadium, now named Camping World Stadium, during a bowl game against Wisconsin. One of the many terrible bowl games against them, unfortunately. But yeah, I mean, Duke Johnson, all-time leading rusher in 3 years. Like that,
Yeah, I forgot about Duke Johnson.
Yeah, that's it.
Who's still
but then
catching
again,
70 or 75 passes in the NFL.
Right. But I mean, you have Lamar Miller as well. You have Mike James as well. You know, you have other guys. I mean, it's not been a barren wasteland at running back for
Well, I
Miami.
wasn't saying that it was. I just hadn't come up with an all-time great since McGahee, but I forgot about Duke Johnson. And Mark Walton had the one, like, super season.
Yeah.
As well. I guess that there would be some considerations that would need to be made and some logistics and scheduling that would be a bit difficult with 15 teams in a conference. I've not worked out the math, but if you add Notre Dame and you play your 8 or 9 games, I'm sure it could be worked out in some way, but it's not a perfect fit like 12, 16 teams, 8 teams, etc.
Right. I mean, even 10. I mean, as to the question of J Love T, I would say I would lean that they would probably want to put Notre Dame on the coastal side to have a better. Oh, wait. Breaking. Cam Kinchens announced his commitment to the University of Miami. Bang, bang, bang. Okay. Where was that? On Instagram? Because I'm on Twitter's. I'm looking. Yeah. Excuse me. I gotta blow my nose. Yeah. Okay. Well, we're gonna go with Hayes Fawcett because he has the edit. So yeah, Cam Kinchens to the U, and we're gonna embed that, and we're going to post that.
So while Cam is looking through that, J Love T, thank you so much for the two super chat contributions. Thank you so much for that. And also a question regarding where else you can contribute to the channel. So J Love T, I will take just a second here, honor that question, because thank you so much for just inquiring about that. If you look down in the comments section of any of the videos, the description section, I should say, under the videos, there is a link. I would put a link to all of these various companies, but the only one that would copy and paste and would work was PayPal. But I'm on Cash App, PayPal, Venmo, and you can just search Mark Rogers TV. But there is a link to PayPal, I believe, Venmo, Cash App. They're down there. So thank you so much for asking. And then, of course, we've got Cam on here, and the super chat is the best way in the here and now with this particular show. So J Love T, thank you so much for that. Come on, my Mark Rogers. Put some respect on the real running back. Only 2 running backs in the past 13 years did not get drafted. That's huge. Yeah, there was no disrespect there. There was just, I don't know that anyone outside or since McGahee would be considered like all-time great on a national status.
Yeah, I mean, on a national status, you're probably talking McGahee. Apart from that, Lamar Miller, who was, I mean, just really great here, but maybe a little undervalued. And then Duke Johnson, obviously, when you leave, is the all-time leading rusher in Miami Hurricanes history. That counts for something. So, yeah, those are the ones I would say.
All right. Ooh, Frank Gore. Well, he was in the same.
But, yeah, he was at the same time.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I get that you want to say Frank Gore, but, I mean, yeah, he did play an extra year because he had all those injuries. So, if you're talking simple chronology, then, yes, Frank Gore would be the next one. Yeah. But, yeah, no, Cam Kinchens committed to the U. Already posted the piece up, the Welcome to the U on State of the U, because I was working on that a little earlier today, which is why I had all the statistics ready for you this morning, because I woke up and was writing that before I came on here. Embedded that tweet from Hayes Fawcett, an amazing graphic designer who does all the edits, or lots of edits for elite players across the college football landscape. So did that, posted that, so you can check that out.
That's what I need, is a graphics designer. Mr. HD and others in the live chat. We made this clarification last week, and if somebody wants to come up with a great catchy nickname in terms of what you guys want to call Cam Kinchen, you can do that, and it could possibly incorporate the term kitchen. But let's understand that his name is Kinchen with an N and not a T in terms of where you store your appliances and your food making. All right. I don't even know what time it is. Have we done our good work? Yes, we have.
Yeah, no, I was just at the end looking here to see about Cam Kinchens committing to Miami, which he did already. So like I said, I already posted that piece up, which is great. So, and then also goes in and folds into one of the pieces that one of our new contributors wrote this week, Robbie Espin, about Ed Reed and his expanded role in recruiting, because it stands to reason. And it was reported that Kinchens did speak to Ed Reed, that Ed Reed, as you know, helping in the recruiting department for a safety to come to the University of Miami was a beneficial move. So, yeah, that will work. But yeah, I mean, look, it's a good get. Like I talked about earlier, Ephraim Bonda heads up against another SEC team for a blue chip safety. Stephen Field played at Northwestern and coached at Northwestern previously, leading that recruitment as well. Just you know, it's a good get. You add that on top of Avante Williams from last class, you know, and other guys who are on the roster. I mean, safety is a position of strength and getting stronger. This is exactly what I was talking about in the recruiting rules of like stacking elite classes, because, you know, you can't take a year off because, you know, what if somebody gets injured, like has happened at Miami. I'm not going to name players because obviously that everybody knows those. And I mean, it sucks. But I mean, yeah, what if somebody transfers? What if somebody gets injured for a year? What if somebody moves to a different position? What if somebody gets hurt for a year and gains 55 pounds of muscle like Dan Kendrick did at Florida State, and he went from the nation's #2 quarterback recruit to playing fullback for 4 years? You know what I mean? Like, what if something happens? You want to have a contingency plan already built into your roster. You want to have that year-over-year turnover where it just gets better and better and better. So you're doing that. You're accomplishing that by getting Cam Kinchens. And yeah, like I said, 5 for 5 at Miami Northwestern. Bro, and those are guys that, you know, lots of teams wanted. In Brantley and Brinson, Hammett, Burns Jr., and now Kinchens. So it's a good get. It's a big win. Now we have 17 recruits in this class. All 17 either live in or hail from South Florida. So that includes Elijah Arroyo, who lives in Texas now. Family from Miami-Dade. You have Deshaun Troutman in Orlando, but his brother Trenell Troutman played all over South Florida. He was at Miramar for like a hot second. He ended up at St. Thomas Aquinas and Miami Central. He went to Louisville as a safety, but again, he's from down here. So all 17 guys, regardless of where they live now, are from here. Manny Diaz talked long and strong about the fact that Miami was going to do their dollar and going to focus on and do and recruit the South Florida area, recruit it well, recruit it strongly, and recruit the guys that they wanted and get those guys. And if you're talking about 17 from 17 hailing from this area or living it, because Michael McLaughlin is from up north, he moved down, he goes to Stoneman Douglas. So he's the one who's not from here, who lives down here, and two who are from here live elsewhere. But all 17 have strong ties to the South Florida area. You cannot talk about recruiting local, you know, more than that. So, I mean, have there been some misses? Yes. Have there been some losses? Sure. Corey Brooks from Booker T. Washington going to Alabama. You're going to have other guys who are going to go other places just because you can't take everybody. But like I said, 17 for 17 from this area, pretty strong job of putting his money where his mouth was.
I have to take on this comment. So, okay. Eddie DeCane, we always appreciate the conversation. You're always in here contributing. So love that. But let's face facts here. Okay, the SEC, I would love to get on here and go through a lot of metrics, as I've done in the past when I thought that there was a debate or an argument to rank conferences, but it's just a futile task right now. The SEC is the best conference, and it's been the best conference, but there have been times when the ACC jumped up 3 or 4 years ago where I declared I still think that believe that the SEC is the best conference, but this particular football season, it was in 2016, the ACC played better on the field. The Big Ten's done it occasionally, but my goodness, Eddie DeCane, let's take away Alabama, which, of course, you can't do. They play in the conference, but let's take away Alabama. LSU just won a national championship.
They did.
Look at every conference in the nation and look at the last 10 to 15 years. USC last won a national championship for the Pac-12 in 2004. Since then, Oregon's made 2 national championship games. So you're looking at 1 or 2 teams contributing at that level at different degrees, not consistently. Ohio State's owned the Big Ten. Nobody has made any dent in the Big Ten nationally other than Ohio State ever. The Big 12 has been Oklahoma dominated. They've not been able to push through for a national championship since 2000. Texas, of course, in 2005. Clemson has owned the ACC. Most recently, it's been Florida State, obviously winning in 13 and then falling off the radar in 16 and 17. The SEC has had Alabama, Auburn, LSU win national champ. Florida, we're going to 08. So in the last 12 years, they've had 4 national championship teams, and they've had Auburn play in national championship games. LSU just won a national. So they've had 5 teams win national championships since 2008. And if you just go big bowl games, period, non-conference games within the Power 5, the SEC just has the most wins, the best winning percentage, the best in any metric you want to name or go through. I could lay it out for you. The SEC, I don't want to say dominates the sport because I think that is too strong of a term, but they are clearly the best conference from top to bottom, or if you want to go most significant, like top 5 to 8 teams that play relevant, meaningful games. That's all there is to it. I would love to have a debate. I would love to take my shots at the conference, but right now, and in the last 15 years, by and large, most of the time, it's not been an argument. That's my thought.
Pretty much.
All right, Cam. It's always appreciated. You know that. And I hope everyone else sees the value here as well with Cam and his work at State of the U. So please join his work there and the rest of the staff as they cover Miami football and athletics in an ever-changing landscape, as we should know in about a week whether all the conjecture we made today comes to fruition, but it's certainly lining up that way.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens, and appreciate you guys spending 75 minutes now because we went a little over with the Kinchens commitment, but live article just posted like while we were talking, so you can go check that out on stateoftheu.com. We're on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at The State of the U. My personal account is at Underwood Sports. Whichever way you choose to engage with it, please come fan with us, and we'll see you next week.
Okay. Cam, can we keep you on here for just a second? Judge XX is coming through with a huge super chat contribution.
Okay.
So we would like to recognize that. He just says, I appreciate you guys. Judge, I have never seen you make any comment. I don't recognize your handle, but you've just made an enormous super chat contribution that I would get to the screen if I see. Again, I'm not going to explain the logistics that I'm working with that are different than what you see on YouTube, but I don't see it. There we go. There it is.
Wow.
Judge, thank you so much. We appreciate that. Again, don't know where you're coming from. And it's funny because it's almost a daily basis, Cam, that I have people that will make a comment or they'll finally come out of the woodwork and I'll ask them how long they've been watching. And, some people I got 20,000 subscribers. There's obviously scads of people that they just watch. They never make a comment. They just enjoy it. And then something moves them to make a comment or make themselves known. And, oh, you've been watching for 4 years? Wow. Would love to hear from you. If you don't want to comment, hey, and that's how you participate in social media, that's great too. But Judge, thank you so much. It's much appreciated for Cam and myself.
Yeah, man, no, that's pretty awesome. And I know that, sometimes with some of the media that I consume, I do it quietly, if you will, just listen to it, watch it or whatever. Don't really processize about it. Don't post about it. Don't comment or rate or any of those kind of things. Everybody else, rate, review, subscribe. Like even when I had a podcast, of course, you got to push for those things. And obviously, 20,000 subscribers, that's going well, for you and the channel and everything. But yeah, sometimes it's like I just like to enjoy it, but you get moved to like action sometimes, and we appreciate that. But yeah, Judge Juno, man, that's really generous of you. We appreciate it greatly. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. And I didn't jump on here 3 months ago and get 20,000 subscribers. Man, this is taking a long.
Oh, no. Yeah. I'm not saying over. I'm just saying.
I know
yeah,
you know.
Yeah, of course.
Good stuff. Good stuff from Cam. Thank you so much, Cam. It's always appreciated. And Judge, thank you so much once again. And everybody else that in whatever way you can contribute. If that's just hitting the like button, then that's not just a hitting the like button. That's a contribution. So whatever you can do to keep us going right here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, and specifically our Miami coverage featuring Cam. Cam, have a great weekend, man.
All right, you guys do the same. We'll see you soon.
Thanks, everyone.